Welcome back, Tribe from the North, Brave and Bold, to the official, unofficial podcast of your Idaho Vandals and the Vandal affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Chris Hammond. With me today, I have Alex the Boat Boatman and Brian Marceau. We got the original trio back together. How you guys doing?
Good. It's been a little bit.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I feel like it feels longer because we're all talking, but we haven't actually been on like an episode together, actually just talking.
Yeah.
FCS, because that's why we're here. We have some FCS football news, so we figured we'd break up our series a little bit. We'll still have the I Am a Vandal series coming out next Thursday, like scheduled with Alyssa Charleston. But we got FCS news. We got football happening. We figured it'd be a good time to check in with kind of the team here. But man, crazy, just crazy. The year can't get any crazier. I think we're all being affected by smoke. I don't know how it is in Coeur d'Alene, Brian, but from pictures I've seen from Martin, Moscow, it doesn't look great.
For an update, I have not been able to leave my home for 72 hours as of recording. So that's
you needed this.
Oh, yeah, this is social.
Well, welcome. I'm glad we could fill in, get Brian some socializing here in the middle of pandemic, social justice issues, wildfires. 2020 there's no better time to cover what's going to happen in the spring of 2021 right now than today, I guess. But let's start that by thanking our sponsor, Montucky Cold Snacks. Ain't nothing like cracking a Montucky Cold Snack, an ultra refreshing light beer born in majestic Big Sky country. The best part is when you crack a snack, you're giving back. Montucky Cold Snacks donates 80% of all profits back to local causes, even right here in Idaho, supporting organizations like the CW Hogs and the Idaho Food Bank. Yeehaw! That's freaking awesome. Montucky Cold Snacks, the light American lager for pow rippers, gator wranglers, pony riders, and badass do-gooders. Visit MontuckyColdSnacks.com today to find out how to get your ass some snacks. Now, we've had a couple different episodes where I've now learned that apparently people are scared of that ad read. Alex, I think you did a pretty good job when you did it. Martin seemed very hesitant when he did it. I know Sean's talked about how when he does interviews, he just wants me to edit me in. So I love it. I think it's fun, but I wasn't aware that. But now everyone feels my pain, I guess, when reading. And I know, Brian, you read it last year at some point, but
there's a lot of syllables.
Yeah,
there is, and words that you don't usually use in a sentence, like yeehaw and get ya, I guess. So yeah,
I think if you just read it like Chris, it makes it easier. In my opinion,
I did notice you tried to do that.
Use the same inflections. It makes it so much easier because I hear it so much, Brian, when we're doing this. You know, that's the only way I hear it is via Chris. So I'm like, all right, that's how it's supposed to sound, right?
That's how, yeah. I was like, it'll be fun when everyone does it. They'll put their own twist on it. And then I did catch everybody tries to put the same cadence on it that I do, which is that's why maybe going forward we'll have everybody pick an ad to do. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, big news. The FCS Competition Committee announced today that there will be a 16-team playoff with a championship game happening on May 15th, which would mean, I don't have the article pulled up here, but does that mean, I think it was April 16th the playoffs would start? Does anybody else have it? Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Awesome, right? I kind of put a thing on Twitter the other day. Obviously, I think I've been on here. Most people are aware that my thoughts were, I was very like, let's just play in the fall. It's not postponed until spring. Now that it's happened and there's nothing we can really do about it at the FCS level, man, we're going to have football through August through May. We're going to only have 2 months without football this year. That is awesome. I know. In my opinion, I'm like, you know what? Talk about glass half full approach here. I also come around on the plane, like, we're going to have basically the college football championship. And then we're going to have like probably a little bit of downtime with NFL
playoffs. So
yeah,
we're good.
I feel like week one's probably going to be that Super Bowl week, I would imagine, which is fine. Super Bowl's
after
Sunday. Yeah, so it's Saturday leading into the Super Bowl. You think so? We'd start after? Because we're going to be 9-game schedule?
Working back from, I think the Big Sky's on the 8 from what they had announced back. I mean, that could change, but from, when we talked to Dan, it was an 8-game. Working back from that means the earliest Idaho and the rest of the Big Sky will start February 20th, the weekend of February 20th. So that is 2 weeks post Super Bowl. That means for Idaho, for a school like Idaho, we come back to school usually the Wednesday before Martin Luther King Day in January. Sounds really weird, but that's how it goes. We come back that Wednesday before, so that gives Idaho about 5 weeks of practice leading up to a season from when they get back to campus. So it's going to be really weird because, and I know we're kind of jumping the gun here, but how it normally would go for us leading into a normal season, you show back up like the second week of June, third week of June. You had like a month off back at your hometown between finals, and you come back in June. You would work out all together, but you have a week off before fall camp, and you have fall camp leading right up into practice. So you're still well conditioned, still well in shape. Well, now these guys are going to have to. It's going to be which team comes back from Christmas break, which is the toughest break to come back from in shape, because what happens when you go back home for Christmas break? You eat a bunch of food, you hang out with your friends. It's a tough time. So whoever team, New Year's, whoever comes back in shape the most, that's going to be huge, because it's going to be a short time turnaround from early January when they come back to when they're playing a game late February, hopefully in the Dome or somewhere in Big Sky Country.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I don't know if they've announced this. Are the schedule? I know originally they're playing. I think this was the idea with the fall. That's why I don't know if in the spring. Obviously, there's not been a ton of information that's been released. It's just got announced today, which when you guys are hearing this tomorrow, so yesterday. The Big Sky hasn't really announced what they're going to do. I know originally it was in the fall they might look at we might play Montana 3 times. It's just going to be who's available to play. But I think with this spring, you're seeing right now with the other conferences. I mean, knock on wood, things can change. We've seen that rapidly. Things can change. But as of now, it looks like everything seems to be working. I would expect that we're going to play basically our schedule, which then makes me think this is give Idaho almost in a way a select advantage, because you're looking now, we're no longer playing Temple. We're traveling to UC Davis to start the season. Okay, so early February, we're going to be in Davis, California. I could think of 10 worse places in the Big Sky I'd rather start in late February than Davis, California.
I'd rather be in Davis than Pocatello. So
yeah, exactly. Except Pocatello, you're in the Dome.
Doesn't matter.
But then I'm looking. But then we're at home against Portland State. I mean, probably a game you want to be on the road just because Portland doesn't get overly cold. At Eastern's going to be a little rough, but at this point you're looking early March. Then we're home against Montana, we're home against Northern Arizona, we're home against Southern Utah. 3 places that are also going to be very cold. And then we're traveling to Montana State, but at this point it'll be late in the year, so you're looking like early April. Still probably cold, but warming up, more what we're used to in football weather. And then we end at Idaho State in a dome. I actually think our schedule works out perfectly for us, because obviously our home games, we're in a dome. Where, I don't want to say – Alex, you've played in cold weather. It's not like both teams playing it, right? But – if you're telling me you got the opportunity to play, and I think this is the thing we're forgetting too, football isn't normally played in these temperatures. I think people forget that football is a fall sport. This will be kicking off the tail end of winter. It's not think of the Potato Bowl. It's going to be like that for the first half of the season in a lot of these places.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting for the teams who all of the teams besides us, NAU and NAU, Idaho State, and us, who don't play inside or have an indoor facility. So when we start practice in January, we're fine. We're inside. We don't have to practice outside. I feel like basketball is going to be having a back seat, and everything's be having a back seat to what football needs this spring in terms of availability of the Dome. Just kind of hate to say it, but that's how it's probably going to work out. We have a dome to practice in. It's going to be crappy to be Montana and Montana State, man. Oh man, that practice is going to be hell.
Yeah.
Come late January.
I'm looking at this right now, right? Your average high in the normal months for Missoula, Montana, at least, right? You're looking at August 85, September 73, October 58, November 42. December, a little bit of the playoffs, you're looking at 31, right? Well, February, you're looking at 39 degrees, 50, 58, 67 by May. So you're going to be basically that late season October, November temperature range, with those lows also being the average low being 50, 42, 32, 25. Now it's going to be 18, 21, 28, 33. Like, you have any night games, you're going to be playing it basically freezing. I know people say it's wimpy, we play in a dome. Real football is meant to be played outside. But we can all admit we're not really playing real football this spring. We're playing, let's just get a season together. That's why everybody's granted eligibility. You can play, and it doesn't count against you. You're going to get to play fall 2021. It's really not football. It's an off-season of exhibitions that just happen to have a trophy at the end.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, too, that I'm happy about the fall. I mean, what we're doing with spring is because we do get that championship. We also got some questions answered. You know, the announcement from the NCAA was that FCS teams can play an 8-game schedule. And because of some news we may see out of other FBS conferences, the question of non-conference or not non-conference is starting to seem a little more irrelevant, which would point, Chris, to what you said earlier about at this point, we're still speculating, but there's good reason to believe the schedule on paper we have right now for conference will just be our spring schedule.
Yeah, just pushed back. Yeah.
But there's another point that I'm kind of stoked about too with this, which I'm curious what you guys, Chris and Alex, what you guys feel about this is, you know, I definitely read some headlines a couple months ago, some editorials from people encouraging the FCS to, let's say, you know, completely shift to spring. I like that we get a 1-year dry run of, is FCS in the spring actually is it actually something that materially would be different about the attention we get in the spring without having to do that risk of shifting from fall to spring permanently. I don't know if we're going to get the same level of attention, but that maybe some people believe, but I'd expect it would be higher than an average year. What are your thoughts on that, Chris?
I actually think we're going to have less attention. I think you might see, like with the XFL, I think maybe that first week people will be like, heck yeah, especially because there is going to be that in my opinion, enough of a break between the actual the college football championship. We'll have about a month and a half until the FCS kicks off. I do think if we went like right after that, people would be like, I just watched, you know, Clemson beat Alabama for that matchup for the 5th or 6th time. Like, I don't really care to watch Georgetown versus JMU. But I do think because you're going to have that little bit of a gap, it's going to be after the Super Bowl. It's going to be like that first week of XFL where people are going to be like, no, let's give spring football a chance. I want to see this. I want to see that. But I think the other thing we're forgetting is, like, at this point, as I brought up how excited I am for football, not everybody is me. I think we went from being sports starved to I think we're going to have people that are just over sports by the time spring comes around. Because you're looking at this, if you're a Premier League fan, the Premier League took like a 4-week break, and they were just kicked off their season again last week. If you're a NBA fan, the NBA is planning, as far as I know, to tip off again middle of October. So they're only going to have a couple weeks break. I mean, the MLB's just starting to roll into the end of the season playoffs, everything like that. And then they're planning on having spring training again at normal time. And I think, like, we've almost had an overload. Like, the MLS pushed all their stuff back. The championship game is going to be in December. It used to be in November. Then they're going to start playing their games again in February. I feel like because we pushed so many sports back out of necessity, and they all started off, their seasons are going to carry into each other, where it almost doesn't feel like a separate season. Where I feel like by the time we're like, holy crap, like, I feel like I've had a year's worth of baseball, a year's worth of basketball, a year's worth of football. I think spring's going to come around. Hopefully, from everything we said, why part of the reason it's good, people are going to be able to start getting out a bit more. I think you're going to see more people be taking vacations and stuff, and not like to Moscow or Cheney or Missoula. They're going to be like, I'm going to go to Mexico because I haven't been able to. I'm going to go to Europe. I'm going to go to Australia. I think if we're on pace who knows? Like, again, everything changes. It sounds like in the spring things are going to return to a slightly more normal state. You know, best case scenario, I don't think you're going to find people sitting down watching FCS football. I think you're going to find people trying to finally be like, holy crap, I feel like I've been cooped up for a year. But bet your butt ass I'll be watching every single game. I just was telling friends today how, like, they were like, what's up with football? I'm like, the way I see it, I still got my season tickets. They got pushed till spring. I'm assuming we'll see what we're seeing in some states now by then, where season ticket holders will be spaced out in the dome. But if not, I'll be paying pay-per-view for every game. my schedule doesn't change. If anything, I'm excited. One of the big deterrents for Cat Grizz is trying to go to Montana in November. Might get to go to Montana in April. Like, I might make a trip to Cat Grizz this year, depending on our playoff odds. Like, we were just talking to the FCS Fans Nation people. Like, we just booked our Airbnb for the championship. You know how much better Dallas, Texas is going to be in May than frickin' January 5th? Like, no more tornadoes or ice storms. We're going to have, like, a little bit of warm Texas weather. I'm all about this spring season, but I do agree with you. I think for a trial run, it's fun. I think by the end of it, we're going to realize it's probably better if we play alongside the big boys in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of seeing right now, we have a sports saturation. Right, and like these last 2 weeks, it was like, I think last Saturday was the first time there's ever been NHL playoffs. You had MLB, you had NBA playoffs, and you had NFL and college football.
All the U.S. Open.
And the U.S. Open this weekend, golf, last weekend, tennis, and U.S. Open and tennis viewership was down 50%.
Yeah.
I mean, U.S. Open tennis, like, people, there's some people who just watch tennis because usually it happens, you know, in the summer when there's only baseball, they don't like golf going on. So right now we're seeing the saturation, and NBA, I think, is committed to tipping off at Christmas. I think their plan is. I think that was there. So now we're going to rotate to when we play in the spring in February and March. You're going to see MLB go back to spring training, the NBA in the middle of their season, NHL in the middle of their season, soccer will be going back into the Premier League. You know, so, and like you said, life. I've had 3 weddings in a span of 4 weeks in late March and early April between Idaho, Washington, and the Virgin Islands. So football is, everyone's pushed life in general to late March and early April, just like the big FCS has now pushed football to that same time frame. So it's going to be a weird time. But yeah, we did a little trial run. Plus the XFL, I think, is going to be back in this next spring from what the Rockets said. So now that's more competition in football. Yeah.
But let's be honest, that's interesting. Do you think the FCS can outdraw the XFL? Because I think a lot of football nuts would rather watch the FCS than the XFL.
College football nuts. I think, you know, it's going to be whoever. I think it's going to depend on what the big wigs at ESPN decide to put on TV. But you know, again, if they're just going to put FCS on ESPN Plus like the whole season, no one's going to care. Except, you know what I mean? Like that's.
But the XFL's deals with Fox, though, right? It's not with ESPN.
It was ESPN and Fox last year. I think it's Fox again this next year. But ESPN might go, no, we're good. We have NBA and, you know, NHL to put, or they don't have NHL, but they have NBA and whatever to put on. Who knows? They could be looking for content. They could be playing Thursday and Friday nights.
Yeah, that's the MLS. Sorry, Brian.
That's another thing that could replace some of our lost revenue. I mean, like, fingers crossed here, is even if it's a one-time TV contract, something relating to like ESPN, you know, because some of the big question too for me about the viewership is like if it's still on Pluto, you can probably just assume whatever typical Pluto viewership, that's the number you're comparing to. So even if it's an increase, it's like, you know, moderate increase. But if, you know, we get a 1-year thing where ESPN's covering or something more major's covering, you know, worst case scenario, some of those budget problems that everyone is freaked out about, maybe they're taken care of a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. I do think how the season will line up, but we'd only have to compete with the Mariners Root Sports broadcast for like 3 weeks. And obviously that's only 3 Saturdays, and it's always during the day, and the Mariners don't play Saturday matinee. So I think you wouldn't see anything with the TV deal. I think we're going to be where we've been. But that brings up an interesting point. At the FBS level, Oklahoma's games, all but 2 this year, are pay-per-view. As a fan, I have now realized that as somebody who's not a fan of that team, how much that sucks. I want to watch Bobby Petrino's first game last week, but they did not offer per game either. You had to buy this like Sooner Plus pass for like $70.
And what's crazy is they're trying to win Spencer Rattler Heisman, the new starting quarterback from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
How are the Heisman voters going to see it?
Yeah.
I would put money down that one of the reasons Spencer Rattler does not win the Heisman this year is because Oklahoma put their games on pay-per-view.
Yeah,
they're gonna have to look. It's kind of like how Christian McCaffrey lost the Heisman to Derrick Henry. 6-7 years ago because they were playing West Coast time. No one was watching. So it'd be the same thing. They're gonna be watching Trevor Lawrence and now Justin Fields because of Big Ten stuff.
Because they'll be on every ESPN primetime game. Is going to be those guys.
Or Fox. ESPN or Fox is going to be Clemson and Ohio State.
Yeah, and I just think we've been talking about it, kind of playing with the idea. As an Idaho fan, bet your ass I pay $70 to be able to watch every single game except the 2 games that are going to be nationally televised, which for them is Oklahoma, and I think this week they're playing Kansas State on Fox or FS1 during Big Noon kickoff. But I want to watch Bobby Petrino. And when I thought, like, in pay-per-view in my head, I was like, I'll pay $10 to watch a game that I really care about, right? Like, I want to watch Bobby Petrino's first game and see Spencer Rattler. I was like, I'll pay $10 for this. But I wasn't going to pay $70 when I knew I'm probably only going to watch one Oklahoma game. That's not nationally televised. I'll watch Oklahoma versus Texas, but there's no other game on their schedule. I'm like, I need to watch this game, And that's where I think maybe they missed it, and I hope maybe we could learn something from that. Like, if a Montana fan wants to watch Idaho play Eastern one week, if we did do the pay-per-view route this spring, have a 1-game pass. Charge them $5, $3, $10, whatever. Find out what the sweet spot is. You got people who do these analytics, but don't charge just an annual pass because the odds are for them, maybe they had enough people that bought it that it'll counteract me making the decision not to. It is Oklahoma, but I don't think the schools like Idaho are going to do that, I think you're more likely – I know I'm more likely to buy a Montana State game so I can watch them play UC Davis or Sac State, right? If Idaho's bye or has some crap opponent or we're winning or it's a different time, I'll probably pay for that. But I don't care about Montana State enough to buy a $70 a year pass to watch them because I then also have to do it for Montana and Eastern, and that adds up. So now I'm spending $300 to watch teams. So that's where I'd like do it per game. Let me pick what game each week I'd like to buy. But I don't think, like we kind of touched on, I don't think we're going to have a pay-per-view issue. I think we're going to have our normal Pluto, and I don't think there's any conflicts with Root Sports. So I think we'll be doing still the Root Sports game of the week, which they still haven't even named, even before all this happened. Probably because they usually announce it when COVID broke out, but we still don't even know if we're going to be on Root Sports this year. So
Soonerwire.com lists the package as if you want to buy 1 game, it's $55. Or the whole season's $80.
That was it.
Well, that's insane.
Right? I was like,
hey, good for Oklahoma trying to make money during the pandemic,
Yeah, but it's Oklahoma.
Rabid fan base, and they can't put a full stadium in there, so they know how to capitalize it and get people watching.
But then you look at the teams they're playing. Like, what other team is going to pay $55 to watch them play Oklahoma? Like, Texas would. But Texas is on national TV.
Is how does that? I don't understand the Big 12's TV rights is one of the most messed up TV rights deals in the country because of Texas, the Longhorn Network, and everyone else is so separate. I don't even want to think about the Big 12's TV rights and how that works out because this is something they're doing brand new this year. What I'm curious about for Idaho and us and the FCS is what's a record for a playoff team that doesn't win their conference? 5-3 cut it,
That's true.
6-2.
Depends on the conference for sure.
Different Big Sky, which we're you can probably argue Big Sky, Missouri Valley, top FCS conference in terms of depth of good teams. Does 5-3 in the Big Sky cut it? Or some team's going to have to go like 7-1 in like the Big South.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this. I think like when I was chatting with Kyler Neal. I think in the perfect world here, right, there's 10 AQs. I think that's a part of the reason they went 16 because originally the talk was 12. And people are like, I don't know if you can do 12 because now you're going to be pulling teeth between Missouri Valley, CAA, and Big Sky. Like somebody in those 3 conferences has to make it, probably at least one school from each, and you're telling one conference now. It's kind of like the power or the playoff, right? When it first started, It was like, all right, you have 5 Power 5 conferences, but you're only at the time going to put basically 4 in. Now we've shifted to kind of, in my opinion, doing a good job of getting the top 4 teams in, no matter if it's 3 from the SEC or not. But I think that's why they went 16. You're still going to have your 10 AQs, but that leaves 3 at-large bids. And I hate to break it to the other conferences, but pending an amazing season from like Sam Houston State, where they lose in like quadruple overtime to Jacksonville State in the Southland, who ends up going undefeated, and you have that team who lost in quadruple overtime on a blocked kick to a team that also went undefeated, I think that 6 should be broken up. 2 at-larges to the Big Sky, 2 at-larges to the CAA, 2 at-larges to the Missouri Valley. Because there's no way you can the North Dakota State, everyone I think would say it's a 99% chance they win the Missouri Valley Conference this year. You really going to tell South Dakota State, who's primed to have another great year, oh, sorry, we decided to put Albany and Montana in because Weber State won it, but we wanted Montana. And you're like, okay, no. So I think you're going to have to go 2 from each. So I think that's where, Alex, where you said, I don't know if 5 and 3 gets it. How many ties at 5 and 3? I think there's too many. I think you're going to have no more than 2 losses. And even that, man, I think you want to be sitting at 1 because it's going to be a tight, which I actually think helps Idaho in a way. Because we're going to look better because let's be honest, our non-conference schedule, yes, we had a shot against Temple. Yes, we had a shot against Wazoo with a transitioning coach who didn't have time with them. But I think any rational fan would say that was probably going to be 0-2. And then the win against Eastern Oregon wouldn't have mattered. So now, we still got to perform. But we've got a transfer quarterback coming in, which should help us in theory.
Heard a lot of good things.
Yeah, and it's just you look at the schedule, at Eastern is going to be tough. Hosting Montana is going to be tough, and at Montana State is going to be tough. But you can't tell me with how weird this season is, especially Eastern Washington still not even being able to get together, we can't win 2 of those 3 games. Will we? We'll see. That's kind of what we're talking about. But and obviously we still got to not lose to the Northern Colorados and the Southern Utahs and the stuff that we've done in the past. But
Portland State, Idaho State.
I think Idaho's set up because instead of having a weird-looking 1-2 record going into conference play, we're going to be 0-0, and we've got a shot to maybe only lose 1 to 4 games. I think it's a healthy shot at how we best case scenario finish this year. But we could totally flop too.
A comparison point too, Chris, is in the 2019 playoffs. Big Sky had 4 teams qualify for the playoffs.
Yeah, all seeded, right?
But yeah, well, that's exactly it. Is they were all part of that top 16 seeding. So, question about is 5 and 3 good enough? If you're a team, you want to be 6 and 2 instead because your life's easier. But based off of what we saw last year, 5 and 3, if you have a really tough schedule and your only losses are to a couple top 10 teams. The math from last year would say it's certainly feasible to make it. I don't know if the committee would view the optics differently when there's only 16 teams instead of 24. Or maybe that is the thing. That let's just pretend for a second that Montana was the last seed in 2019. I don't know if that means that in this year that last team in for us, that'd be the 4th conference team, just doesn't get in. But I mean, for teams like Idaho, the 16 team, because of how strong conference is, the 16 team bracket might not be a gigantic deal the way it sounds like it could be.
And you got to remember, something to talk about. Some of these teams are playing in the fall. We no longer have to compete with the Central Arkansas and an Austin Peay and what looks like maybe Campbell this year. Sam Houston State, I guess they were, or not, sorry, SF Austin, but they weren't playoff eligible anyways. They were genius to play in the fall because their season didn't matter anyways. But yeah, Central Arkansas was widely considered I think number 8 or somewhere between 8 and 12 on most people's polls. That's a team that you looked at maybe if they don't win their conference, they still got a bid because they were considered good. They're not playing in the spring. They opted to play in the fall. So I think you've also wiped a little bit of the competition away. That being said, really Austin Peay and Central Arkansas, I think, are the only real 2 teams that we can say probably would have made the playoffs that aren't playing. The other ones would have been bubble teams like Idaho, but it still helps. And we'll see. What do you guys – is there any way – you look at Monmouth last year, right? I don't remember if it was Monmouth or Kennesaw State. One of them actually won the SoCon, and the other one –
Big South.
Big South. Sorry, Big South. Big South, not the SoCon. Correct.
I know the commissioner. He's a good guy, so the Big South.
Yeah, the Big South. I think Monmouth actually pulled off the upset and beat Kennesaw, but because the run Kennesaw has been on, they were a good team. Kennesaw still made the playoffs. The Big South put 2 teams in the playoff last year. I don't think there's any way on the planet that happens this year. I think with there not being 24 teams, these bids are going to go to the Power 3, maybe the Southland, just because it always flirts with kind of being that fourth team. There's enough decent to good teams in there. But like I said, I think it would take just a miracle from 2 teams out of that conference to where they would just make everybody else look silly. And their only loss to one of them was just an extremely close game to the other one. And maybe early in the season too. Like it's the first game. I just don't see how it's not going to be 3 Big Sky, 3 in Missouri Valley, 3 CAA, and then everybody else gets their 1A.
Yeah. It might be like a 3-2-2, and then a couple other 2s from where it depends on, I guess, how the season shakes out. Some teams get some bad losses. Because all of a sudden, you talk about the Missouri Valley, okay, we're talking about South Dakota State, maybe UNI, maybe Illinois State. Yeah. Outside of that, who's really competing for a playoff bid? And if one of those teams slips up,
Dakota.
If one of those teams slips up, and all of a sudden, like Illinois State's 5-3, and then you have a Monmouth who's 7-1, and Kennesaw State's 8-0, maybe the Monmouth squeaks in over like the 5-3 Illinois State kind of thing.
I don't think so though, because I think Illinois State's a top 10 team.
They might. I mean, it's just yeah, So I think it depends on what. I don't know. It's gonna be tricky. Idaho just is basically control your own destiny.
Win.
You just win. Go win. You finish 7-1, you're definitely. You finish 6-2, you make a good case. That's about it.
And I know this hurts basically what we just said, but I actually think this year more than any other year, preseason rankings are going to have the most importance. I would actually like to see a redone top 25 by like stats and the coaches going in the fall, especially with players transferring and everything like that.
They probably will. I bet you they have. I mean, it'll look, if they don't, then week 1's going to look drastically different.
Yeah.
Than preseason.
I mean, how do you keep UCA in? So what happens? Yeah, like okay, UCA was in it for preseason, and then week 1 happens and you revote. Well, now UCA is not playing. So are you dropping them off? Or are you going, well, we think that had they played in the spring instead of the fall, we're just going to compare their – like, no, you can't do that. So I think you have to restart the rankings all over. And I think it's going to be important. I think if you're a preseason top 10 team, that basically says as long as you don't totally goose it and don't win your conference, you're probably in. If you're South Dakota State and you're considered number 6 in the country, but you finish with 3 losses and end up being number 12 in the rankings, you're probably going to get one of those, last 6 in spots. But I'm not sure what it's going to take for a team like Idaho who probably won't even receive votes to make that jump into it. It would have to be win the Sky or only lose to Montana State.
I have the weirdest question of the night. Ivy League is always guaranteed an AQ. They always refuse it because it comes into the contest with finals week. What does the Ivy League do?
I don't think.
If you look at the FCS, they are invited every year. The champion is invited every year. They always turn it down, but they're still officially decline the invite.
Same with the MEAC and SWAC, right? They turn it down to the Celebration Bowl.
Right.
Yeah, although like asterisk with the MEAC and SWAC, like if you don't win that conference, but you get a playoff invite, you do accept it.
Yes, but I don't think that's going to be the case this year, And
no,
is the Celebration Bowl getting postponed? I imagine it is.
I think they'll probably postpone it, but the Ivy League,
true.
There's been some Ivies that have been up there in the rankings.
Does May fall during their finals fest or finals?
I don't know when they're on finals. Fest. I don't know when they're on finals in the spring there, but if they aren't, do they consider accepting and playing actually in the playoffs for the first time ever?
I think no, but I would love to see it. I would love to be wrong. I would 100% love to be wrong because I actually think the Ivy League gets too much flack. The Ivy League would be pretty good in the FCS playoffs. I don't know if they have any championship winning teams. Maybe Princeton because they get like 4-star quarterbacks.
But better than the Northeastern Conference, right?
Oh yeah.
We can say that.
Yeah, I bet you Dartmouth, Yale, and Princeton would all smoke Kennesaw State and Monmouth. If I'm being
Monmouth, they'd smoke Monmouth, yeah.
Colgate, and it's near some of these teams that made the playoffs last year. I bet you they beat Austin Peay.
Duquesne has been up there.
I honestly think the top 3, at least for sure, in the Ivies would be top 15 teams in the FCS every year.
So that's what I'm here for. I'm voting for an Ivy
an Ivy surprise appearance. So what you're saying is there's only 5 votes to go around.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect the Ivies will do anything different because I really think the view from the Ivy League with not accepting the playoff bid is I don't feel within the Ivy League they believe they're missing out on anything. So I don't think they would change that much. Mostly just because the Ivy League they're a self-contained unit within the FCS in a way that the other conferences aren't. But I have one point I just have to talk about spring season. We had the opposite of this last year when we had the extra non-conference game, which everyone loves extra football. But what that translated to for a lot of Big Sky teams, well, not a lot, but a good amount, more maybe half-ish, was an extra D2 game or an extra FBS game where you're just taking care of the athletic department. It doesn't actually tell you about the team. So it took a month into last season before we were at the games where we could say, okay, this is what our team actually is. Yeah. This year, we get to start that with week 1.
True.
As someone who creates content about FCS, to me, that is fantastic.
No more bowl games. We're not, bowl BULL games, not BOWL. But yeah, all the games are going to matter this year. It's going to be like how people say the NBA doesn't really start till the NBA playoffs.
Yeah.
We're starting the playoffs, baby. We're Big Sky football. Our first game is most likely going to be in Davis, California at the end of February. There's no tune-up game against Drake. There's no money game against Indiana. We're starting, and like we said, we can probably, as Idaho, only afford 2 losses if we want to shake at the playoffs. Probably only 1. So every game's going to be important, but I think it shakes out well for us.
We're also going to have a more even playing field look, the playoff analogy you gave is perfect in my mind because in a regular year, let's look at last season, University of Montana picks up 2 or 3 non-conference wins and suddenly they have to just not screw up their season to make the playoffs. You compare that to us where we had 1 FCS game and 3 non-FCS games. We didn't really have much margin for error whatsoever in a way that Montana and Montana State certainly did. For Idaho fans, that's a non-issue this year. Everyone is pretty much as close to even playing field as you can, pretty much as close to it just matters how many wins you get. And some teams, of course, in our unbalanced schedule, some teams have it easier, some teams have it harder. But if you're a Vandal who's been frustrated about how our schedules make it harder to make the playoffs for us, and they objectively do, that won't matter this spring.
Okay, well, that brings in a point I'd like to bring up. Kind of what I would like to have changed about how we handled fall. And it could, with all these schools coming out. I know Alex is going to give us a rundown here shortly on some of the news that's come out with other conferences. Big Ten looking like they're coming back, Pac-12, Mountain West. At some point, when they're healthy, we can do these rapid tests. Idaho has proven, I think Mamu just tweeted out that all 168 fall sport athletes haven't had a positive test in 2 months. You look at Idaho seems to be on track to be able to play. I look across the country. I'm a little jealous, right? I think Arkansas State they're going to become dangerous. The amount of money that they're making from doing these FBS games, the national coverage they're getting, they're on national TV. I'm jealous of that. I would like to see the Big Sky be all right, here's the deal. They're not going to count against your record. You can go play exhibition games this fall or this winter. Whoever will take you. I know it's a little late because, maybe you find a Big 12 school or the Big 10 or Pac-12 that goes, actually, we do want some conference, out-of-conference games. Maybe they rapidly try to do it. We can get Wazoo on the schedule or something. But I would like if we got to play 1 or 2 games, the showcase games in the fall. If your school is able to, and it really bothered me that the Big Sky came down and said, even though schools like Idaho were pursuing it, we couldn't. I know Montana wasn't interested in it. I think Montana State was trying. There were some schools that were trying to get a couple of these games. NAU was one. And I wish they would have let us because I think obviously it's unfair and I'm doing it out of selfish reasons. I wish we would have gotten a chance to have a game like this, but you're right. Is there anything that you guys wish we would have handled this fall spring decision better? Am I on something? Because I look at Campbell. They're playing all 4 of their games against FBS opponents. We all know about FBS paydays. That program made their money. They're not playing in the fall, or spring, which is fine. They weren't going to make the playoffs most likely anyways. What they did was they went out, played 4 teams. That's what we just saw against Georgia Southern last week, competitively against one of them. And they're going to get tons of money. And then you look at a program like UCA that's on the rise. They're getting national TV. They're playing money games. I'm envious of it. And I wish maybe we could have had that game against Temple and maybe gotten a game against a Big 12 team like Texas Tech, or I would have probably bought the Oklahoma pay-per-view if Idaho was playing. So I don't know. I'm just jealous and envious and wish we would have had that opportunity. And it still bothers me that we weren't. I mean, anything you guys would have wanted differently?
I think it's a double-edged sword, though, because we are in a position where, winning 6 or 7 games in the spring puts us in a position to go to the playoffs, where if we are one of these teams now playing Temple, like Oklahoma State, and then like UTEP, you might go 0-3. So now how does that reflect on you come spring when it comes to trying to make the playoffs? They're supposed to wipe it clean probably, but mentally we're all human. We're all human. That payday might be nice.
You still saw it, right? It's like, this paper might not say it, but I saw it with my eyes. They got 63 zip against Oklahoma State.
You can go see the score on ESPN still.
Yeah, like if Missouri plays in the spring, we're going to be like, we know you were down 48 zip in the first quarter at Oklahoma.
Right. Yeah. No matter what, no one will forget that. So, that's a double-edged sword with it. Payday would have been nice. Chance to maybe, throw a roster out there and maneuver some guys around and see how maybe like Mike Beaudry or, CJ Jordan could do at like UTEP would be cool. But, I think we put ourselves in a position for a chance to compete really well come February in the Big Sky to try to go win a conference championship. And I think that's what it's about at the end of the day, to try to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of complaints about where we're at, mostly because I think it's not like I felt like I observed a ton of incompetence or something like that out of the Big Sky. I thought they looked at the situation their programs are in, where a ton of them, even if we theoretically could play, certainly would not be playing right now. And they made this decision before the wildfires, but the wildfires certainly have not made it easier for, let's say, your Eastern Washington. Even if you had the clearance to practice, they sure as hell were not practicing this last week. So it's the same with some of the California teams that, don't have indoor facilities right now. So I mean, that wasn't part of their decision making. I'm okay with how it turned out. It would have been nice, I guess, for teams like Idaho who needed, like, making the money is a bigger deal for people like us, people like Idaho State. So I guess that would have been nice to have, but I really don't mind. I mean, I think I'm part of one of the weird percentage of people who, like, I'm still into sports. I still will watch sports, but like, I have to convince myself because of just how the pandemic is that sports are still a normal thing. Like with the NBA, I love the NBA, but I actually had to sit down and tell myself, hey, you need to watch the NBA. It's on. Because I kept thinking, with how everything's going, it was just hard to get in. I don't know, Alex, did you have any of that kind of reservation at all about, I don't know, part of you, when sports started, feeling like it was hard to accept that something normal is happening?
I don't think so. I think being a English Premier League fan, I came back, or even a soccer fan in general. I was watching Bundesliga come mid-May, so I only really take a 2-month break. But I was starving for it. I guess it's mainly just because I guess that's the whole world I live in. My profession is athletics, but it is weird. The NBA, it's tough for me to sit and the NHL playoffs are usually one of the funnest things to see in May. Or the NBA playoffs can the crowd's going crazy. It's been tough. It's been tough to try to get behind it. And I think football was kind of the first thing that kind of came back that I was super jazzed about, and probably because I have 3 fantasy teams, and probably because I'm not working in college athletics, I can bet on it right now, and it was a good time. So I think that's what piqued my sports interest, to be able to maybe wager a little bit here or there.
Yeah. See, I agree with you, Alex, because I think what I've noticed is, maybe, like I said, obviously I'm a football guy, so maybe that's it as well. But I think it's something to do with that football started on time. Football feels in season for me. And I guess that's where I was kind of also trying to allude to when we were talking about the spring with the FCS is like the NFL week 1, I did not notice that there weren't fans really. I mean, yes, I did, but it's like it still felt like the NFL. Where the NBA and the NHL and even the MLS
I noticed
it felt like
it felt weird.
Weird thing, yeah. And now that the MLS is back playing kind of normal, I mean, like
I think it's the stadium thing.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And the MLS would be playing right now, so it's like I'm used to watching soccer right now. I'm used to the Premier League kicking off right now. That's why already week 1 Premier League feels more legit than those last 10 games they played or whatever.
But even that felt more normal to me because I think it's the stadium thing. Like you see it like I mean you're a Spurs fan, and I mean for me being a United fan, I know what the pitch camera looks like at Old Trafford and how it should be looking on the pitch and what the director's box looks like and how the field feels. Like that feels normal for me. But when I'm watching the playoffs, you see these big screens with fake fans sitting there.
Yeah.
You know, you watch Monday Night Football, and it felt like Pittsburgh was playing at the Meadowlands. Like that's what it seemed like to me.
Quick take on Monday Night Football, just because I'm curious about this from everybody.
I'm a Steelers fan. Fantastic. I love Herb Street. Love Fowler.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. Herb Street, Fowler, and Maria Taylor.
They're the best.
They killed
the best ESPN team. Yeah.
But I do not want to see them become the Monday Night team.
They won't, because Herb Street. I listen to Pat McAfee. He loves college football. Herbie is like, NFL's cool, but he's like college football.
If anything, I think it hurt ESPN going that your best dudes are on college, and it bothers you because they don't actually care to leave that money. Because they would make a boat ton more doing Monday Night Football. I think Herbie's been offered more money to do Monday Night Football.
Yeah, probably.
I can't do that. And I just think like Maria Taylor could probably pull it off because she's young. I think she's like early 30s.
Yeah.
I don't think she's married. I know she doesn't have kids. For her leaving on a Thursday night to do a production meeting Friday to then do college game day Saturday to then do Saturday game day to then fly Sunday to do the production meeting for Sunday Night Football or for Monday Night Football, then doing Monday Night Football and flying Tuesday, probably wouldn't bother her that much. But like Herbie, who has kids and a family, Fowler, who has kids and a family, like they don't want to do that every week.
I think Fowler can get it done more than Herbie because Herbie does college game day and Fowler doesn't now. Fowler just has Saturday game. I think if one thing I would love to see Fowler on play-by-play on Monday Night Football, maybe throw Reese Davis in the booth Saturday Night Football, it'd be fine. And then you put maybe Peyton Manning in the booth with a Fowler on Monday Night Football, it'd be a good all around win-win. You're gonna keep Herbie, which is what everyone wants in college football. Fowler, he's the best play-by-play guy on ESPN.
And the Maria Taylor thing, I really want to tie her to college football, but then I'm going through my head here. Like I was a huge Erin Andrews fan, and when she was at college game day, it made me upset. I was like, dang, I don't see her as an NFL person, and now it's weird for me to think like I thought that way because I think she does a really good job with the NFL for Fox. Yeah. So I guess I don't want to put like Maria Taylor in that booth. Same with with Christian Ponder's wife. Same thing. I was like, you're the ultimate college person. Like your husband was a star quarterback for one of the top teams in the country. Like you are college football. She moved on to the NFL. I think she does a good job on Monday Night Countdown. So I guess I'm wrong. Maybe the people like that are more replaceable, but I don't think Herbie and Corso are replaceable. I don't think Reese Davis is replaceable at this point. Or Dez. I don't know.
I mean, also there's an analogy here too with NBA and the NCAA tournament. When TNT does coverage of the NCAA tournament, the TNT color guys the studio guys who are absolutely the best studio show on any channel. You can tell they just don't care. I mean, they'll try, they'll still do their work, but you can tell when Charles Barkley can't name a single player that he's talking about, or when they're just the style of play
from Ohio.
Yeah, exactly. And the style of play in the NBA is different, just like there's some differences in play between the NFL and college.
Because I noticed
there are some guys who are there's some guys who are just not going to really care for the transition. They'll do it, and they're still fun because they're talented broadcasters, but you can tell there's a gap when a guy like Herb Street, let's say, is doing college because he loves college, whereas a guy Charles Barkley or Kenny Smith, when they're doing the NBA, they love the NBA.
Yeah, and Herbie slipped up a couple times on names, and then most importantly, I heard him call a couple rookies freshmen. But all in all, I mean that would come with time, I think. But I loved it. They did a great job. But come on, stick for our sake. Stick to college football.
Hey, Saturday night, ABC, 4:30 for us, Miami, Louisville. Yeah. So should be a good game actually. Top 25 team.
Yeah. All right. So let's see thing here. I think we've pretty much gone through it. We talked about the FCS. We've covered basically everything we want to see from the spring, right?
Yeah.
Is there anybody else got any FCS spring stuff? I mean, I guess I'm curious. Mountain West, good lead in for you here, Alex. And the MAC haven't really announced their plans at all. Are they playing in the spring? And if they do, are they going to make up mock bowl games? Like, how is that? Like, if you're Boise State, is there any benefit to playing in the spring when you're not going to any kind of bowl game? You're just playing a Mountain West schedule. Do you just go, screw it, we're just going to play next year? Because you're not playing any of the big games, so you're not going to make money. I think if you're a big team, like, I get the MAC playing, but, like, some of these Mountain West schools, I'm sure, like, why the heck are we playing? Like, if you're Hawaii, you're not going to get any bowl money and really limited TV money. Like, what's the point of even flying your team anywhere?
It's also different for the Mountain West teams. Like, let's use the analogy for FCS real quick. The teams playing in the fall, like, they're maintaining something that we understand what they're trying to keep going. I mean, not just the money, but, like, it is tradition to play football in the fall. Yeah. They are continuing that tradition. For the Mountain West schools, it'd be and also by playing in the fall, the championship still hasn't taken place, won't take place this spring, but that might make it feel like instead of the season being over and then you're just kind of the preamble to a season in a way that actually is kind of interesting. Whereas if you look at the Mountain West, the FBS championship would be done. So like it truly would feel like it was, I don't know, just tacked on at the end.
Do they do their own weird playoff system where them and the MAC do like top 4 team, like our East, both of our division leaders playing like a weird playoff? I mean, I guess that's something they got to figure out. Because who else is out? Is it just those 2 that are out?
So
Alex, give us the rundown.
I'll kind of. Today, Big Ten came out and said, "Hey, we are back. We are fully back." They're playing 8-game season starting October 23rd, ending December 19th, putting them in contention for the college football playoff, which is announced December 20th. Okay. It's come out also today. The Pac-12 has been in position to follow suit. People might wonder why now, why all of a sudden. Well, the Pac-12 and Big Ten schools have been progressively pursuing rapid testing machines, more testing for things like myocarditis, and that's what was holding up their doctors in the first place that told them not to play. All these schools, Wazoo now, will have a rapid test COVID machine that literally gives them results in 15 minutes, and they're going to have more tests with myocarditis. And that's what's changed this. It's not that the COVID numbers have changed. It's not that, numbers are going down. It's the medical side, the medical care of the student athlete has changed. That's what's changed. So the Pac-12 has what's putting the Pac-12 on hold from following suit from the Big Ten. It's pretty much down to the governor of Oregon, the governor of California at this point. Kind of came out today that Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, said, told Larry Scott, you guys could practice. There's nothing holding you back, except the fact you can only practice in groups of 12 people. That is kind of an issue. But California has let the Rams and the Chargers and the 49ers partake in, practicing and being in groups of 100 people with the NFL. So I do think you might see a change. The Pac-12 and will heavily lobby now Gavin Newsom and the governor of Oregon to kind of make exceptions for them. Don't be surprised if you see the Pac-12 back on course to mirror the Big Ten. That was always the plan. I think if you would have seen them play in the spring together with the Mountain West and the MAC, you would have seen some sort of Rose Bowl. You would have seen some sort of bowl games happen, kind of intermingling. It would have been fine. What is that? About 40 teams. That's enough to make up a small postseason of some action. Came out an hour ago from Stadium, Brett McMurphy, that the Mountain West presidents are progressively pursuing a 8-game schedule that mirrors the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. So now we are seeing the Mountain West move again with the Pac-12 back to fall. The only schools that might have issues with this, Hawaii might not play. It's coming out that Fresno might have issues. It's also coming out that Air Force might have issues, which is interesting because Air Force was the only Mountain West school allowed to play in the fall. they are allowed to play in the Commander-in-Chief Trophy games against Army and Navy, with only their cadets being in the stands. That's what was allowed. So now Air Force might be allowed to rotate and play again, but they might not be on board with that. So you might see 9 Mountain West teams partake in fall football, which is actually perfect. That's a round robin in the Mountain West of everyone just plays each other once. You can decide a conference champion from that. So now the MAC players and people are releasing statements. Don't be surprised if you see the MAC maybe follow suit with the Pac-12, the Mountain West, and the Big Ten. So now we're seeing waves of college football. We kind of started, ACC and Big 12 came back last week. The SEC comes back next week, and now we might see late October, October 23rd, a flood of 4 conferences come back to play at the same time. So we might be seeing normal college football at the FBS level, all 125 teams pretty much out of 130 probably playing come fall. So
did the FCS mess up? I think that's the question to look at this. Like, why is it okay? I get money. Every other conference figured it out later, but it seems like they're all moving towards playing. And yet here we are, and we just decided on that we're going to allow our teams to play in the spring officially. I just don't realize we've already covered. I'm happy we're going to get to play in the spring. I think it will be fun. But then you just hear all this and you go, so what are we doing? It's hard not to say that.
It is, and I'm going to say what changed is, it's going to be hard to say if the SEC and the ACC, I think they were right. I think the big conferences are right in what they do because they have the dollars to provide the medical care for their students, provide the testing. And then to come back to the Sun Belt and Conference USA messed up, potentially. I think we've seen Florida Atlantic has an outbreak on their team, and we're going to talk gambling lines later. That line, they were a 6.5-point favorite at Georgia Southern. That line is now moved. They are now a 1.5-point dog because 20 guys on their team had COVID. Memphis had an issue. They had to cancel a game against Houston. That's a conference game. They had to move that game around. Virginia Tech, Virginia. So are we wrong to wait? I think what has changed is the Pac-12 and the Big Ten have the resources to get it done more than anyone else does. And it's the Mountain West and the MAC, right, and probably moving back with them. I guess they don't want to be the only girl left to dance without a dance partner, so they're going to go back too. So
I have a hard time seeing the MAC doing it, because the Big Ten was already, unfortunately, it sounded like it came down to a lot of politics where the state of Michigan was saying no. So Michigan and Michigan State were holding up the entire Big 12, who said we're going to go together. And then I sit there and I go, okay, well, that's not as big of an issue for the MAC. So they have 3 teams in Michigan, and that whole area is just having some issues right now with making these decisions. And obviously it's easy because the Michigan alumni came forward and said, basically, we're a sports school. Like, most of our alumni came here to do sports. They have overwhelmingly more donations to their athletics than their actual academics. They're an athletic school, and people said, if you don't play, you're going to alienate your fan base completely. Yeah. That's not the case at a lot of these MAC schools. I don't assume somebody goes to Ball State because they just love, football, basketball.
I think what you might see issues with is we're going to talk about contracts and force majeure can come into play in this. What does their TV deal with ESPN look like? Do they stop paying them because everyone loves a good MAC show on a Wednesday night? Does that stop next year because they broke a contract with ESPN? What do their bowl game contracts look like? How can they argue force majeure if the Sun Belt's playing in those bowl games, but the MAC's not, and everyone else is? So I think you might see more of a legal issue kind of change the MAC's perception. The only reason to get them back. But yeah, I think we're headed for full FBS football come October, November, and college football playoff is still going to be the Pac-12 sitting now with no one to dance with.
Sorry, Chris, to answer your point too. No, the Big Sky didn't screw this. The FCS did not screw up for this. Yeah. I mean, one of the things we are seeing, like Alex did bring up the good point about you kind of have to look for these headlines right now, but there's a ton of teams that are having relative outbreaks. We referenced Arkansas State earlier. Well, they just had to postpone a game against Central Arkansas. So a school like Idaho, I mean, things are going well right now. I think the money thing, it's easy to say there's money, but all these other reasons. Money is a huge reason in terms of just being able to stay afloat. And, if places can afford the better medical care, then that's what you would say makes it an okay decision, is they have that kind of medical supervision that I just don't believe. I mean, I think Idaho's doing the best it can, and I think Idaho is doing a good job relative to peer institutions, but we just don't have Michigan money.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, let's kind of cover some of the fall stuff now. We got games this week. Whoa, what up, Sun Belt? 3-0 against the Big 12 last week.
It's the Fun Belt.
It's not. It's the Wind Belt now, baby. It's the Power 6 Belt.
I miss this. I know we talked about we're moving on. It was weird. Ed Hall was stopped by on his way to Alaska last week in my house. He stayed. I think we were watching the Texas State SMU game. He's like, "Man, I miss this. I miss playing these games in the Sun Belt." And then lo and behold, the Sun Belt decides to pop off the last 2 weeks. And if you go look at former Idaho players' Twitter, it's kind of funny going, the Sun Belt can play. Good seeing that, though.
We've been saying
Sun Belt represented.
Yeah, I'm glad it finally materialized. I always said, I don't think this is like we're saying ripping off the scab again or we're moving forward. You can still appreciate a conference. We have ties to it, but you don't see me bragging about
almost 10 seasons in that conference.
Yeah. I don't brag about whack basketball. I just saying, with the Sun Belt, App State, totally fun team to root for. The Chanticleers seem like a fun team to root for. Texas State kind of fun to root for, and then you just watch them because we've heard it when we were in it, right? Oh, the Sun Belt's basically an FCS conference. Sun Belt's terrible. It's the worst. Boom. Sun Belt just beat 3 Big 12 teams, went 3-0 against the Big 12, and had some very other good games. I think it was Texas State almost beat UTSA. It was overtime.
That game was I won't get into that game. That game was one of the dumbest games I've seen in a while in terms of punt returns, missed kicks.
But once again, if they're so bad, Texas State's probably going to finish last in the Sun Belt. They're going up against UTSA.
Well, then we'll see SMU the week before, too.
Houston team. Yeah.
It was American, so.
So it's
Fun Belt, hashtag Fun Belt.
Hashtag Fun Belt. That's probably the conference I'm pulling for. I want to see App State run the table this year. Sun Belt, 2 teams in the top 25, Louisiana and Lafayette. I guess they're just Louisiana now.
Don't call them Lafayette. They get pissed.
Louisiana.
Arkansas State. Also, real quick, Blake Anderson, what a story. Lost his wife last year to cancer. That's a whole thing. Great to see. And he was there the whole years we were in the Sun Belt. 14. He's been there since 2014. So if you want a good story to root for, go follow the Red Wolves, Arkansas State. Blake Anderson, class act of a coach, and so good story to keep up on. But it's a good time. It is. But I know you're talking about some FCS versus FBS games this week. We got a few.
Yeah, the FCS didn't do that bad either, have they?
No.
Houston Baptist almost talking about maybe it's not a Sun Belt thing, maybe it's a Big 12 thing. Houston Baptist almost upsetting Texas Tech and Lubbock, who had people in the stands. What are some other good games? UTEP almost lost to Stephen F. Austin, I believe. Yeah,
UTEP. Stephen F. Austin blew the game pretty much. UTEP was gifted a win. That was a close game. UTEP now has another home game against another FCS Tech school, Abilene Christian, this week. 4-point favorite again. That's what they were against Stephen F. Austin. They covered, but they shouldn't have. That was a gift.
Georgia Southern.
Campbell, Georgia Southern.
But Campbell,
Georgia
man.
Southern.
And Campbell's got a big one Friday night on the ESPN nationally broadcast game. Talking about FCS teams getting a win. People want to see these Camels.
Yeah, and they were playing a depleted Georgia Southern team, I think, who had 11 guys out due to a variety of COVID team issues. It was same with App State. App State was missing 15, 20 players due to team issues and maybe COVID. It was the whole thing. But Campbell, the Camels go on the road to the Teal Field in Myrtle Beach, catching 26.5 points on the road. I think that line might be a little high because of what Coastal Carolina just did to Kansas.
Yeah,
Campbell looks like they're not afraid to play, and 4 touchdowns might be a lot.
Yeah, they lost going for 2 because
and then they recovered the onside kick, but then they got a flag for engaging on a block. It's onside kick rules are dumb now, but
the Coastal Carolina is still playing for something. They got to go 500 and go to a bowl game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Campbell's not. They got 4 games, They need to do what they did last week and just be lights out, electric TV, so they get put on ESPN for awesome branding. They got Coach Minter now, like trending on Twitter. They're a fun team. If you're an FCS fan, you got to tune in Friday night, so tomorrow, and check out the Camels. I mean,
and their nicknames the Camels. Like
yeah.
Come on, the Camels.
Yeah.
Couple of their FCS.
I take Campbell in that for 26 spread, just because I think Coastal is riding too high off beating Kansas.
That's a trap game.
Yeah, I think they're not that great. I mean, I think they're pretty good. I don't know. That one's close. I could see that one being like 28, but it could also be 24. That's probably why the spread's 26.
Another FCS game at FBS. Austin Peay goes to Cincinnati. Cincinnati up 34 is the spread on this one. And I hate to say it, I think Cincinnati's going to kill them. If you are wanting a dark horse team to cause playoff noise and you're tired of UCF, pay attention to Cincinnati. They have a quarterback, a guy named Desmond Ritter. Luke Fickell's their head coach. They are a fun team to watch. That team is probably going to drop 40 on Austin Peay on Saturday because I think they're on a we run the state tour because Ohio State is still kind of half dead.
Yeah, and Cincinnati is better than Pittsburgh, who just beat Austin Peay, I believe, 55-0 last week after really letting off the gas in the second half.
Didn't they make the quarters 10 minutes in the second half against Pittsburgh? Yeah, they did.
They might have,
So all bets were null and void because they didn't play a full game.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen this week because I think there's easy money putting it on Cincinnati.
Yeah. Stephen F. Austin's back in action again. They play UTSA, so a couple teams we talked about. Stephen F. Austin catching 14.5 on the road in San Antonio. UTSA looks sloppy. I think that was a first-time starter. Stephen F. Austin, I think it's kind of tough. I still might take UTSA with the 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and see, I kind of know Texas State's not very good. That's the only reason I checked in that game was I want to see Gresh Jensen. So I watched them in week 1 or week 0, whichever week they were playing, week 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then their quarterback, did he get COVID or something? But he was not playing in week 2. So I'm like, Gresh Jensen, I think, is actually going to play. And then when Gresh Jensen's not even on the team anymore. So all I know is Texas State's not very good. I didn't know if UTSA is any good.
They were not supposed to be. It was supposed to be. Texas State was favored by 6.5 against UTSA.
So what's the spread against Stephen F. Austin?
14.5 UTSA. I kind of
probably avoid that one.
UTEP's pretty bad, and when Stephen F. Austin played them, UTEP is not good. That one might be a stay away. Maybe the easiest money on Saturday is Clemson, 44.5 against the Citadel. Citadel looks not great against the. Did you guys see what the Citadel's punter did on Saturday night?
No,
you didn't.
I was watching because I was right during the Houston Baptist thing.
It was all over Twitter.
Okay.
So Citadel's down to.
Oh, it's just he punted it and the guy got tipped. He caught it in the end. I did see that.
So the Citadel is trying to do a rugby punt, right? And so the ball's perfectly snapped. The punter starts moving right and starts looking. Instead of catching the ball, it slips through his hands. And ball drops on the ground. He picks it up, breaks a tackle. So instead of getting tackled in zone, he then gets a foot to it and punts it, but he punts off the side of his foot. And
it was like 5 yards.
South Florida player catches it in the end zone, right at the pylon for a touchdown. Right? Yeah.
Well, he caught it like on the 1, which allowed it to not be a touchback, I think, right? Because technically it was past the line of scrimmage.
It was a punt. I don't know. It was just one of the weirdest plays I've ever seen.
It was weird.
And there was the Citadel. I think because I was betting on the game, that's why I was watching it. Took the under, easy money. But if they're going to lose to USF by like 28, what's Trevor Lawrence going to do to that team? Yeah. You got to just lay the points with Clemson. He might be playing a quarter, and they might be taking him out to make sure he doesn't tear an ACL or something.
Yeah, my bookie doesn't have any of my spreads up yet, so I have
I'm looking at 5 dimes right now. Best place to get the FCS lines early. Last FCS game we talked about it already. Abilene Christian at UTEP. The UTEP laying 4.5 as the favorite at home.
This is a chance.
So is Abilene better than Stephen F. Austin? Do we know?
Yes, they're supposed to be pretty dang close. I think that would be depending on who you talk to.
So if they're better, then bet Abilene Christian because CF Austin should have beat UTEP outright. So take the 4
is it worth
points.
The money line though? What's the money line?
Oh, it is. It is worth the money line. I mean, it's going to be if it's 4, it's probably going to be. I don't have a money line out right now. I would have to guess it's probably going to be like plus 150, plus 140. That's about right.
I could dance with that.
I think it's worth
at least for $1. Might as well, like just to be I told you they're going to win. Like put money on it.
Yeah, yeah. I know a guy who I think laid like almost $1,000 on Abilene Christian on CF Austin to win outright, and he was close to cashing. He was a little upset,
that would be big.
But FCS, FBS, Campbell. That's the one I think. Even though it's 26.5, that one's gonna be fun and easy to watch because it's on actual ESPN Friday night.
And then next week we get into some FCS versus FCS games, pending nobody has huge outbreaks. So those games will be a little bit more predictable. So these are one of your last chances. So I love for people that do live in a place where you're allowed to sports bet. Why I love early season is you do get these matchups where it just doesn't make any sense that the spread is where it is. But once you get in the conference play, your spreads are all going to be like closer because Idaho playing Idaho State most likely is going to be like a 10 to 14 point game most years, right? And so when you get these early season matchups like Clemson versus the Citadel, and they can't put a spread at 60 because just people wouldn't put money on it, they've got to put it where somebody will put some money on both sides. It's easy, and they try, and then they keep raising it, and people keep putting money on it. And 44 against the Citadel, but Campbell possibly. I think early season. You just get such big spreads that are either that team's still going to lose by way more than 44, or it's like, oh, there's no way that team loses by 28 points.
Personally, I think lines involving FCS teams or lower group of 5 teams are probably the easiest to bet if you were really knowledgeable in that area because you probably know more about the team's plan than the guys from the lines do.
That's why FCS people make cleanup in the beginning of the year. It's because we actually know what FCS teams are good, where most of the line people will go like, other than North Dakota State, they'll go Eastern Washington's playing Nevada. Well, Nevada by 28. And it's like, Eastern Washington could win against Nevada. So it's a benefit if you're an FCS guy. Something to keep in mind next spring. You're coming up to the end, or next fall. You're coming up to the end of it now. But a lot of interesting spreads. The FCS has been doing a fantastic job. Like I said, we haven't pulled off any upsets yet. But, I mean, I think the fact that we've been so close in so many games in this weird season is almost more impressive than some of the wins.
Abilene Christian's beating UTEP. Calling it right now on the show. Here we go.
And people that are wondering, he is your 5th place in the FCS pick'em?
Yeah, maybe like 6th now.
And TJ Hopkins is 1st. So I'm in the top 20. So we know what we're talking about here.
It was Stephen F. Austin was competitive, and I got to tell you, I did some fact checking, and on October 19th, 2019, Abilene Christian beat Stephen F. Austin at their homecoming, at the Abilene Christian homecoming, 31-24 in double overtime. So those teams, based off the recent evidence we have, they actually are kind of close.
Yeah, not bad. I'll take the points.
I'll go with you.
And money line.
I'll take a money line, and I'll take the points. And do we have an over under? If I want to parlay this.
What's the total at? Let me check here. It is at. Because UTEP cannot move the ball, so
this will be Chris and Alex's pick of the week. Maybe we'll start posting these.
I think we should. Now that I'm not associated with the college or university, I can openly bet, and it's great to talk about because this is
in a state that legally allows it. Of course.
We also
50 and a half. 50 and a half.
Right?
We need to openly advocate for the bottom to drop out of UTEP because if the bottom drops out of UTEP, the chance of New Mexico State and UTEP being open to, let's say, competing with other teams increases. And whatever pipe dream people have about, some teams in the north having someone to join up with gets better. So if you are an Idaho loyalist, you need UTEP to get their ass kicked.
This is my pipe dream.
I thought for a second you were going to say they're going to come to the FCS. It's like,
I
don't think we're going to have a 60,000 seat stadium in the FCS.
I think they're just going to be so bad they're going to
take out
Conference USA. And the Mountain West won't take them. So
they'll go the independent route, and then them in New Mexico State try to form that snow belt.
This is my pipe dream. Brian knows my pipe dream is.
Yep.
Also, one more worthless fact check for listeners, because this was the most important part of the show. If you want to see that punt, Google worst punt ever. And again, as a fact check, but actually it's with how it was described, it sounds a lot more dynamic than it actually is. Like, it's worth to watch it because all those guys are great athletes who they just look like in that moment. They kind of look like, past their prime pickleball players just with how the punt goes. But
it's hilarious.
It was definitely a punt for a touchdown. The punt did not travel far enough to exit the end zone.
The guy caught it in the end zone by the pylon. And I was like, wow, this guy, I'm watching it live. Like, this punter made a move. He got away from the guy. He's going to get this ball down to the 20. This is a win. And then he punts it 3 yards and it just ends up in the end zone still. And the guy's hands are like, what did I just watch? As a specialist, I was hurt. I was so hurt because I know that the guy, the snapper probably snapped it. He saw the beautiful snap. He's running downfield. All of a sudden, they're probably going, what the F just happened? And they have no idea until they get back and watch it on their phones after the game. So that was that's like SportsCenter not top 10, number one, 48 weeks out of the year.
Yeah. That brings up a question. The Big Sky Pick'em, the FCS Fans Nation Pick'em. Their question was, is there going to be a defensive touchdown? Do you think UTEP or Abilene are remotely good enough to get a defensive touchdown?
I think you might see a
turnover. You're going to reveal your picks when people can, because I guess people can steal them. There's nothing.
You of course mean an FCS defensive touchdown. We're not counting Clemson scoring.
No, yeah, it's specifically the UTEP Abilene game.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Either of those teams will score one.
I don't think so. I mean,
bad football leads to good defensive play sometimes.
It's true.
I mean, look at that punt. I mean, I guess that would be the special teams, but look at that punt by the Citadel, for instance.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's safer to say no. Yeah. But it could happen. Am I choosing UTEP or Abilene Christian to win? Might be betting on one, but choosing another in the pickup because I know how things go.
Yeah. I think that's all we really got for fall sports. Other than I just want to touch on, unless you guys think there's anything else. Nope.
I've got a transfer portal item when we get there.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. We'll make sure we do a transfer portal. Has anyone else noticed the increased hostility between Idaho and Wazoo all of a sudden? I mean, I know it's more on the Barstool accounts, and Brian, I know you've been lighter on Twitter since the school season started up, but Barstool Idaho and Barstool Wazoo have I don't know if we've just decided we don't care about Boise anymore, but it seems like everything is just infighting between those two. I feel like every other day it's Barstool Wazoo posting something about us. I mean, Alex, you had the one where they're talking about and the kick is good, and the Wazoo Barstool account said something you never hear in Moscow, and we go, we had a Ray Guy and Lou Groza finalist at kicker for 4 years, and you guys missed a 23-yard kick against Cal.
19. You know what's funny, Chris? Story about that real quick. The Sunday after that happened, every specialist in Idaho, we went in the dome that night, all kicked 19-yard field goals, all made it, and laughed because we all knew what happened at Wazoo the night before. So
and then did you see today the whole top schools in the Palouse thing? We won. I think it was the Princeton Review or it was the U.S. News that we maintained, which I think is our biggest problem, a ranking of 170th, where Wazoo fell from 168 to 176. So now we're the number one rated public institution on the Palouse. And of course, Wazoo, Barstool sees that and immediately makes a tweet about how the state that has don't drop out of high school ads on their radio beat them. And it's where's this hostility coming from? I mean, I like to friendly nub Wazoo, but
I think Wazoo's tired of just getting their ass kicked by UW and everything. So they need to try to they got to try to pick on someone.
Yeah, because then they got all butthurt when the whole thing about they canceled online classes because of smoke. And then Barstool Idaho pointed out that's the most Wazoo thing ever. You canceled an entirely virtual school year.
Wazoo canceled online class because of smoke?
Because they have kids on campus, right? Whole different problem.
Yeah.
but they're not having any on-campus stuff. Kids just decided they signed leases and they're going to go live in Pullman.
That's
But
why
Wazoo-
COVID's massive there.
Yeah, everything is part of the problem. They're all there and they don't actually go to school because Wazoo canceled 100% online classes. Everything is online, and apparently the smoke is coming through their computers or something, and they had to cancel classes. Idaho just waited like another week to cancel in-person classes on campus, and it's like they posted like the most Wazoo thing ever, kind of like a funny thing, and then Wazoo seems super salty about it. It sounds like we're equally kind of poking the bear. I mean, I'll admit that, but I feel like usually we have these spats with like Boise State people on like Boise State Twitter, but Wazoo and Idaho Twitter have been like at throats for like 3 weeks. I think they need a break. Like we need what happens. You know what it is? Both teams need football. They don't have to worry about yelling at Cal fans about how they should have won the game, but they missed an easy kick they make 99 out of 100 times.
Or they blow it to UCLA.
Yeah, we're not complaining that Eastern Washington's field's the wrong color. We're just like 8 miles apart with nothing else to do but pick on each other. I think that is 100% the issue. But all right, transfer portal.
So it's not about the typical topic that we have in the transfer portal. I'm sorry, I'm still doing a little more research there. But there's a Big Sky transfer portal conspiracy theory that I want to start right here.
Oh, I love it.
News just came out today. The oldest McCaffrey, quarterback in Michigan. I can't believe I don't.
The youngest McCaffrey, right?
Yeah. Sorry, youngest. Dylan McCaffrey is opting out of the season. Will seek transfer.
Oh, he's going to Northern Colorado.
Hell yeah! That's a conspiracy theory. We're starting right here.
We started that on the watch along with Aaron Rath. I was what are the odds that Dylan McCaffrey transfers? And he goes, everyone's talking about it. I was like, if he doesn't win the starting job at Michigan this year, I think he's a redshirt sophomore. So he's got to sit out 1 year anyways with these weird eligibility rules that are probably going to happen. I didn't know it was going to be completely waived. That means he transfers, plays, waits out a year, but didn't lose really a year of eligibility. And he's going down to the FCS. So he could play in the fall and still be a redshirt sophomore. He get 2 years in Colorado.
He'll probably play this spring. Doesn't count. Play next fall. Oh, man, he might get 3 years in Northern Colorado.
And before people go, that is just a dumb move on his part. People forget. Kyle Slaughter, NFL quarterback. Jacob Knipp got very serious looks as an NFL quarterback. NIU is not Northern Colorado is not a bad place to go if you're a quarterback. It's better than Southern Utah, UC Davis, Sac State. These schools have never put out anybody.
I think it matters more what his last name is.
That's true. But I'm saying you pair that with a school that actually has a decent quarterback pedigree for the FCS. I mean, strategically, it's not a bad move. I mean, they put out more NFL quarterbacks than anybody else in the Big Sky recently, right?
Well, and I just have to say I love the poetic transition of going from playing in the big house to playing in the big grass.
Nottingham Field too. That's just
he loves blue and gold. He loves blue and gold.
Doesn't even have to throw out his things. Just change tape up some of those M's to be N's, and you're set.
Tape over the Nike logo and start wearing Under Armour, and you're good.
Yeah, there we go. But I like that transfer portal conspiracy. We'll have to reach out to the new. I don't know if they're officially affiliated, but a podcast worth checking out in the Big Sky Podcast Network possibly soon is the Clawcast, which I dropped that name. I'll take full credit for that. I was like, why aren't you calling it the Clawcast, bro? If you want to call it the Bear Den. But we got a Northern Colorado podcast now. So follow that.
You guys, we need to filibuster for 2 more minutes. I know we're clocking in towards the end. A certain member of the Grizz Fan Pod has tried to invite himself on for a cameo appearance, and I may have sent him the link, and he may have said he's jumping on. So I know we got to close out pretty quick.
That's fine. It's always good when you have a surprise.
Yeah, but
I'm assuming it's Mike.
I'll let it be a surprise. But,
Okay.
that relates to another question that you actually referenced earlier in directly talking about Texas State football. The Gress Jensen back to the Big Sky pipe dream is still alive.
Is it? I thought he's done with football. He coached in that Northwest 9 for Taylor Barton. I think he's done.
Okay, maybe he's done. His Twitter profile, I think, said he has 1 year of eligibility left.
Did it? I looked at that when I was like, "Are you even on the team, bro?" But Gresh.
He left. He entered the transfer portal after a certain former University of Montana head coach was let go as offensive coordinator, and I never saw any news. No one saw any news about him going to any other school because he didn't go to any other school.
Yeah. So you are correct.
I know he says he's working with Taylor, but he's got another year of eligibility. We need to hope this works out because, like, truly, I don't know if I'll ever see another journeyman quarterback at the college level like this, where as a freshman, he's at Montana. As a sophomore, he's at JUCO. As a junior, he's at an FBS school. So we've already covered 3 separate, not conferences, classifications, and then a 4th year somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, and he's a grad transfer, so he can transfer anywhere.
Who was the quarterback at Montana State when we played him in 2016?
Tyler Bruckman.
He's the ultimate journeyman quarterback. He was like at Texas A&M, a JUCO, Wazoo, Montana State. I think he might have been at Louisville for a second. He was like at 6 different schools, and it was the most impressive thing I've ever seen. I was like, because he went to like Wazoo at one point. He ended up at Texas A&M after his Montana State. He's also at JUCO. I love those journeyman guys. It's like, good for you. You somehow lived a million different lives in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Gresh Jensen, according to his Twitter, Texas State grad, in parentheses, 1 year of eligibility, / Alliance QB coach, / former U Montana, Fullerton College, Texas State quarterback, / FCS All-American quarterback, / Jerry Rice finalist. So Idaho doesn't need a quarterback. Everybody, I keep getting flack on that online. Like Bledsoe's kid's transferring too. I'm like, would love to have him, but honestly, like I don't want to shit on CJ McCollum. I keep doing that. CJ Jordan.
It's a compliment.
It is a compliment. I'm sure he's like, yeah, I won't take it. I'm from the Portland area, and it, like, yeah, sure, call me CJ McCollum. Hope I can drop dimes like McCollum, but. Like, we're going to have CJ Jordan. I think that Beaudry is going to be dope. This Ty Webb kid that we have committed looks filthy. I'm just like –
I haven't seen that one.
I'll send you it. He put a tweet where he said, I just love football. Like, he dropped a Russell Wilson. Just the ball was up in the air for a million, like, mile high, and just hits a dude right in the pocket. Probably 40, 50 yard. It was – and then his whole thing, like, on the tweet was just, I just love football. It's like, dude.
one thing that could be interesting with Beaudry is that because of this, he will have 2 years of eligibility because this year does not count. Mm-hmm. Talking to some people in the program, I don't think he takes it. Apparently, I forget he's Canadian. He has a good year at Idaho. He's going to be a very sought-after commodity in the CFL. Because every team needs to have like half Canadians, I think, on the roster. So.
Yeah.
If so, then the CJ Jordan experiment starts fall of 2021 after an interim of Mike Beaudry.
All right.
Also,
here we go.
No.
I was like, no, I've got the.
You got the cameo.
No. Yeah.
Should we talk about how Idaho has people in the NFL and Montana doesn't?
That was funny too. 6 of them. But all right, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah. Oh, it's the.
Yeah.
It's from Waco.
Yeah. Look at this ball.
Dropping the bucket.
For our listeners who did not watch that, let's say it was a really nice looking pass.
Oh, that's true. You can get it from the announcer. But,
go watch it. Go watch it.
Go watch it. Tyler Webb. He's commit. We've retweeted him. But all right, is the Grizz fan gonna go? Come on, or should we call this?
I think let's give him we should probably call it, and then if he can jump on as we're closing out, we'll just say it's a happy accident.
It's a happy accident. Yeah. Okay, that works for me. Let me pull up my what we got to close here with. I guess anything else anybody wants to talk about before we close out.
Shout out NFL Vandals, 5 starters plus Jeff Cotton on the practice squad. Good to see it. Love it. Mr. Davis, captain. We need one more. We need Austin Rico in there, but awesome to see all those guys. Jeff's a hard worker. I got the chance to play with 3 of those guys. 3 of those guys in the NFL, right? Yeah. And all of them hard workers. Great to see Jeff, though. Love it.
Have you noticed? I mean, obviously, we're becoming pretty big parts of FCS Twitter and FCS, I don't know what you call it, universe. But, man, people just, like, I don't know what – I mean, I kind of get it. I'd be the same way every other team came out. But, like, nothing we do ever seems to be, like, good, right? Like, they put out the list of, like, all these NFL players. And then the first comment you see when they put Idaho up there is like, yeah, but how many of those kids were FBS or FCS recruits? It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, you keep telling us we're in the FCS now, we should leave the FBS behind, but then we try to, like, claim something as FCS and you're mad. And I get it. Like, yeah, Mikey Iupati did not play a single snap in the FBS, but it's like, you're going to put it – and, like, either way, we've gotten 2 kids drafted in 2 years. Well, not drafted. Cotton didn't get drafted, but it's like, so we're still putting out more kids per year than any other program, including North Dakota State. So it's like, get off our backs. Like, nothing we do seems to, like, work. Everybody just gets pissy with us. Like, we have one good stat, and it's like, yeah, but that was the FBS days. Well, didn't you guys say we sucked at the FBS? So it's still impressive we put them out. I don't know. That it's starting to bother me how, like, we can't seem to win. So we really just need a playoff going because we're not going to win anything stats-wise.
By the way, it's good news when fan bases are being a little more
threatened.
Yeah, exactly. Like with us with Sacramento State last year, like a lot of people were truly happy for Sacramento State because they finally were not dog shit. And if they're solid this year, I don't think that same like affability is going to be directed towards them. But I want to also highlight Kane Ellis, which I know you guys know. Kane Ellis he's not playing like majority of snaps yet, but wasn't he listed as like first on the depth chart?
Yeah, but they were on the 4-2-5.
They were running the nickel the whole time. Like it was, he was on all special teams. So Kane's back out there towards ACL, almost a year ago exactly against the Seahawks in his 4th game. Yeah. It's like week 4. And it's weird because I had dinner with him that week because they were in Seattle the whole week. I was like, I get to see Kane. That's awesome. Towards ACL. That sucks, but awesome that he's back healthy. And he's listed ahead of their 1st-round draft pick, I think, at that position.
That's why I want to reference that is Kane Ellis, who all Vandals are pretty ecstatic to have the Ellis family be part of our lineage right now. But Kane Ellis, a great example of a guy who didn't get the exposure that his talent warranted going to Idaho. Gets drafted late, hangs on, has an injury. A late round draft pick with an injury is a great recipe to not make the team for the next year. Obviously, the Saints knew what he could do and knew what they expected him to grow into. That's why he's still on the team. But that's a pretty rough obstacle to have to deal with. It's fantastic for that family that Caden has dealt with it. And yeah, he's just an NFL player. He's a guy we're not concerned anymore about, is he going to get cut? We're actually now waiting around for, like, hey, when's his next, like, for him, when does his first big for him contract take place?
Is he the best Vandal currently playing? Like, if we're being honest with ourselves, is Mikey Iupati is still obviously starting, but on one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. Love Big Mike, but he's also been in the league for 12 years. Like, he's allowed to regress. Benson Mayowa put up some pretty good, big plays. But I'm not sure if he's better than Kane Ellis. Elijah Penny, it's hard to judge a fullback. Jesse Davis is actually probably. But, is it weird to think Kane Ellis probably our best? And I think it goes to show, too, just like Brian, to touch on your point, I think there's 4 teams in the NFL that probably would have stuck with a late, what was he, 6th? Was he 5th round? No, he was in the 7th round, right? Yeah. So he was projected to go as early as the 5th, went in the 7th. 7th round draft pick tears his ACL week 4. You get no training camp. You drafted somebody first in that or at that position in the 1st round this year.
Only draft pick to not go to the combine.
Yeah, you look at that. Like, I think the Saints, because Sean Payton is a guy who can just figure out ways to get good players on the field, which is another point I want to talk about in a second. The Seahawks, because Pete Carroll does the same thing. Bill Belichick, because he's all about schemes. And I think the Rams, just because it seems like McVay is able to understand, like, quirkiness and small town. I mean, like, how many Eagles do they have? Like, they seem to be aware that, like, some of these small schools put out players, but I'm not sure if any other team sticks with it. And he'd be a free agent. Someone would pick him up and they would love it. But I think the Saints are that team that it was a perfect fit. And I don't know. Do you guys kind of agree with that? I mean, do you see, like, I see the Detroit Lions fumbling this decision. Like, I see Detroit totally effing this up. He ends up at Green Bay.
The New York Jets.
The Giants too, probably. Like, Miami. Like, I just think there's teams that would 100% have goosed this thing, and the Saints are not one of them. But opinion is a couple Idahoans. What is the opinion on Mr. Hillside? God, why can't I think of his name right now? You know, backup quarterback for the Saints.
Taysom Hill?
Yes, thank you. Taysom Hill. Like him, love him, hate him.
All right. Very hot take. Drew Brees should be done. You can't throw a ball farther than 20 yards anymore. Taysom Hill can be a dynamic playmaker like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen in this league. I want to see Taysom Hill quarterback full time, probably after this year. So,
I'm not a Taysom fan. I guess that's why. It's not necessarily. I actually don't think he's a super great quarterback. And obviously, I'll root for anybody from the state of Idaho. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, I hope he flames out of the NFL. But, like, I love seeing it. But, like, the guy's 2 years older than me and was a rookie last year. You know? Like, he was 29.
This is like second year last year, okay?
True. Man, and, like, I played against him in high school, which is weird. Like, I was a sophomore when he was a senior. And it's weird to see him, like, starting in the NFL when I was, like, 10 years out of high school, 5 years out of college, 2 years behind him. I don't know. It's weird, and maybe that's why I'm holding against him. But, I mean, I like seeing him play. I think he's a great player, but I just think this whole gig that he's going to be quarterback for the Saints. I'm the opposite of you, Alex. I don't think he's a quarterback.
I got a hot take here, which, first off, our Grizz fan guys couldn't make it through. It was an attempt of Mike and Brent. They just confirmed it's not going to work the way we were hoping it to. It could, so we can kill the filibuster. But my hot take is Taysom Hill is very much like Troy Anderson in that his versatility is overvalued and sometimes rounded in to generalized competence or generalized excellence. When what he is he's like, it's fantastic that he can do a bunch of different things better than almost anyone in the world, but that doesn't mean he is good enough at quarterback, to be one of the 10 best in the world at that position. I don't think there's any reason to presume that at this point.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we know that they're not coming. So that's it. That's the show. If you guys need anything, I mean, what do you guys got going on in your lives? If anything?
Try not to get smoked out, hoping the weather clears up so I can open up the house and not be dealing with the same air for the last 5 days, and also for the fire alarm not to go off in the middle of the night again.
I feel you. That's why for the people that are on YouTube, when they saw me get up a couple times, I could smell smoke. Remembered I had opened my window for some dumb reason. You could kind of see smoke. I have like a gap between my bedroom wall. It's one of those like 3/4 walls because I have like 11-foot ceilings. And I could see the smoke right by like the fire detector or fire alarm. I'm like, last thing I want is mine going off in the middle of this. That's why I got up. Like, I got up, didn't notice anything, then sat down, smelled it again. I'm like, just go close the window, idiot. So that's why I got up twice. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I really encourage anyone that didn't watch Kristen Armstrong or listen to it to check it out. Like, I'm a pretty big fan of hers, but like hearing her story, like, I didn't know she didn't start she tried to even be an Olympian until she was 28 years old. And she used to hate riding bikes. Like, this story is awesome. I think we got it from a different perspective than you'll ever get from any interview you get from her, because we're not a cycling podcast. It's not a commencement speech where she's talking about her academics. She was talking about athletics. She talked about football. She talked about how she ran track at Idaho. Like, she talked about being Greek at Idaho. It's probably my favorite interview we've done, and Aki was that until this point. So I encourage anyone who hasn't seen it to do it. Speaking of Northern Colorado, as part of the Big Sky Podcast Network, I'm doing NCAA football gameplay. So you can follow that on I think LAXROXTOPHER, Lax Rocks Topher. So if you want to get some bit of Big Sky football, we're doing that. We're doing like a simulated season. That's part of the Big Sky Podcast Network. But otherwise, yeah, Alyssa Charleston next week for the I Am a Vandal series. Yes, that's what we're calling it now. We've got David Vabora hopefully coming soon. We had to do a quick reschedule with him due to some just stuff that's come up. And then we're trying to get Michael Sean Dugar on with Sean. So Sean and Michael Sean on an episode. And so those should be coming out on our normal schedule. We said by Thursdays, every second Thursday. But, we were just like, some news came out at the SCS. The three of us haven't really had a podcast in a while. Brian hasn't made any. Spoiler alert for those of you that watch him, hasn't been on any of the Eye of the Vandal series. So, you were going to miss him if we didn't get him on here. So, I figured we'd get it in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, even though we took like a 20-minute detour just waiting for two dudes who – how many times have they stiffed us? I mean, I know this was like a last-minute thing, but going into Montana last year, they were supposed to be on until like the day before. So I think it's just something they like to do is mess with us.
It's a ploy.
We need to get them back. That's what we need to do. Like next time we tell them we're going to be on, we don't show up. I don't know. We'll get them back. But once again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next Thursday with the Eye on the Vandal with Alyssa Charleston. I recommend checking back Kristen Armstrong and Max Ford for that matter, even though it's an SD for some reason. Listen to it on Spotify. He also has really cool stories. So check those out, and we'll see you guys. Honestly, who knows when the three of us will be back, but I'm sure something will come up and we'll find an excuse. Time for the best band in all the land. Santa Vita, the place out. Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.